The new Overwatch patch is finally here, and in this video we're going to be breaking down 6 underrated heroes to dominate in the new meta. With buffs and nerfs in many characters' power level, some characters will now reign supreme where perhaps they were being shut down before, so we're going to break it all down. But for those of you who want to improve incredibly quickly, my Patreon just opened up. If you want to schedule a VOD review, a one-on-one coaching session, or have access to extra benefits, go check it out right now in the description down below. Now, there are a lot of nerfs going on in this meta, and some of the most dominant characters previously, like Genji and Zarya, are receiving absolutely monumental nerfs, but there is one character that might silently become insane in this new meta, and that's Roadhog. Roadhog is a very strange character that we really haven't seen meta all that often. Sure, there was small periods of time in Overwatch 1 with the Orisa pool hook combo where he was okay, but moving over to 5v5, it was unclear if Roadhog was truly going to find his place. And especially with characters like Ana and Zarya and D.Va all being good against Roadhog, it seemed that Roadhog was always just going to be a stomper of low elo games, but for the most part, as you climbed, he got worse and worse. Until now. We're seeing pro teams in Korea actually experiment with Roadhog on the meta patch and play him all the way up in pro play. And you might be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I know that Zarya got nerfed, but that shouldn't be enough to make Roadhog all of a sudden good. But you also gotta understand that D.Va did receive nerfs as well, even though those were not nearly as big as the Zarya nerfs. But the truth about this Roadhog change is actually because of how the game is kind of playing out, with Sojourn being the best DPS. The one-tap meta is here, with a lot of characters able to just kill you out of nowhere, and the battles are very flank-heavy. Oftentimes the tank is ignored, and especially when you're playing a tank on the front line, and the DPS just completely avoid you, the Kiriko and Lucio avoid you as well, they all kill your backline and you can't do anything. It makes sense that you, instead of playing a tank, you play a DPS, a big, fat DPS that can one-tap himself, and that's Roadhog. In addition to that, one of the best ways to counter a Roadhog is undoubtedly with an Ana. However, now that Kiriko is absolutely insane and capable of just cleansing a Roadhog over and over again and protecting him and enabling him to just go crazy, Roadhog is that self-sufficient tank that cannot be dove, can actually stop enemies from diving his team, and can get pickoffs himself. All that combines to make Roadhog insane, especially in the right hands. And yes, he's still going to be dominant at carrying in low ranks, but you can actually play this character all the way to the high ranks as well. And it's looking like a Roadhog meta might finally be upon us. Do not sleep on this piggy. Now, next up, we got to talk about a character that I think is severely underrated, and a lot of people just think he's not playable, but he's actually insane, and he's going to be even better in this new meta, and it's Zenyatta. Now, Zenyatta is a character that is interesting because he's fragile, right? Characters that want to dive onto the Zenyatta and kill him, he's often a dog to, like Genji and Sombra. Wait, didn't those characters get nerfed? Yeah, they did, and Zenyatta loves it. And specifically Sombra, Zenyatta had a very, very rough time going up against, especially in ranked, because the Sombra, if you were ever isolated, she could just pop out and kill you, basically hack and kill. You can't do anything about it. But that's no longer going to be quite the case. A Zenyatta that is skilled can get that Sombra off of him before she manages to kill him with these gigantic nerfs. In addition to that, Genji is still going to be fine, but Zenyatta actually wasn't terrible in this matchup if the Genji didn't get the jump on the Zenyatta because of that new Spartan kick that can really distance you away from him. And with him losing a little bit of damage, it's going to be a big deal in this matchup. Now, I understand in the pro meta that Zenyatta is just a dive target. In a coordinated team, they're all just going to dive the Zenyatta with Winston, and the Zenyatta is going to die, right? But we already talked about some changes to the meta, and especially in ranked, with characters like Roadhog and Reaper seeing a giant amount of play, Winstons that don't have follow-up from their team and coordination aren't going to have a great time, because Roadhog and Reaper don't take nearly as much coordination as a proper Winston dive. And you got to understand that for the vast majority of ranks, even in the high ranks, the coordination that it takes to dive properly is going to fall at the wayside oftentimes to just a Roadhog, a Reaper, and a Discord on the monkey. You gotta understand that in a situation where players are trying to play for pickoffs and not diving, Zenyatta starts to become better and better. And with less and less characters that can actually contest the Zenyatta in that backline, Zenyatta starts to feel like a legitimate carry character that is definitely capable of adding a ton of pressure, aiding his team in getting picks, and hard carrying the game as well. Now, we're kind of continuing with this theme here, right? One taps are going to be really good. Characters that can win a fight instantly and don't have to play towards the attrition that Sojourn wants you to play, and characters that can get those pickoffs are all of a sudden strong. And with characters like Roadhog and Reaper seeing more play in ranked because it's easier to get the value from those characters than it is that dive, characters that are weak to dive and can get one taps are all of a sudden better. You see where I'm going here, right? Third character on the list is Widowmaker. A skilled Widowmaker can absolutely warp a game around her, and unlike Sojourn, you could take a peek right off the bat and get immediate value. While conversely, Sojourn doesn't get a one-shot that consistently. She has cycles where she'll have it and she will not. And especially when she's playing not against necessarily like a Zarya where it's like a slow attrition and you're going to be able to have a very long fight where you build up like, let's say, 5, 6, 7, 8 rails. If you're up against a Roadhog composition or a pick-oriented composition, you could have one fight, or you could have very, very few fights, and you're not going to get as many opportunities to get that one tap across. On top of that, Widowmaker is a character that can really body a Sojourn in the head-to-head if the Widowmaker has the range advantage and the skill to back it up. Widowmaker is a character that really just doesn't want to play against characters that dive on top of her. Characters like Genji and Sombra and Tracer and Winston, but these characters are not as strong as they were before. Still playable, yes, but unless you're dealing with a coordinated team going after you, it's still possible to find windows of value with this character, and I do think that a lot of people are sleeping on Widowmaker, and I also think that she's a character that if you learn to master her, you can hard carry games, and there's so many of the new maps that really, really work well with Widowmaker. A lot of maps in the map pool really work well with Widowmaker. I would say the majority of maps, besides probably the Koth maps, although some maps on the Koth map still work with Widowmaker. All in all, this character's fantastic, definitely underrated, and very powerful. Now, moving on to the fourth character on our list, and this one might throw you a little bit for a loop because we got another tank that is surprisingly getting pretty strong coming up into this new meta, especially for ranked, and it's Wrecking Ball. Now, we do know that Wrecking Ball feels weak at times, especially previously where the enemy would just swap to Sombra and then just keep perma-hacking you, which could be very, very frustrating. However, a good Wrecking Ball could still play around it if they were very, very specific about their engagements and they were always thinking about where the Sombra was. However, with the new changes to Sombra, not only is she less effective against you, but it actually costs the enemy something to just swap. Because before, they could swap, and then Sombra was still freaking awesome. She wasn't just a character that could counter. But now, while Sombra can be played even outside of a counter, there was definitely a cost to swap off from that character, from a Reaper, or from a Sojourn to a Sombra, because they're going to be losing value that they would have gotten, and they're trying to make that up with dealing with you, and it's not as strong anymore, and you're not going to be shut down as much. On top of that, in the very frag-esque nature of the game right now, where players are often avoiding their tank, they're going in for pickoffs, Wrecking Ball works incredibly well at creating opportunity for your DPS and supports to make plays. Whether it's a Kiriko trying to make a play, dinks a headshot, follows up on a slam, whether it's a Sojourn trying to railgun someone you slammed in, or a Tracer trying to follow up, there's a lot of opportunity that Wrecking Ball creates. It's just before, Wrecking Ball was a character that was heavily countered by the obviously overpowered Sombra, who's now not deleted, but back in line with where she should be, and Wrecking Ball really fits the 5v5 nature of the game. And Wrecking Ball is a dive tank that you can play in ranked that relies on their supports a lot less because they can go around the map getting health packs, and in addition to that, they are shut down a lot less by characters like Roadhog and Reaper as opposed to Winston, who could get shut down pretty easily. Now, the next character that we got to talk about that is actually pretty underrated, and not every one of you are going to agree with me, but it's true, and it's Mercy. Mercy is a character that her res is insanely good for tempo when you're playing to get pickoffs. If you're trying to fish for these pickoffs, whether it's with Widow or Zen or Roadhog, or you're trying to create these opportunities where you get these pickoffs with Sojourn or whatever the case may be, having a support that can not only enable your DPS to do more, but allows your DPS a second second chance, or your tank a second chance in a fight, and to turn a fight where on paper you could have lost it. On paper you could have gotten one person picked off. And honestly, Mercy is a character, especially as you master her movement, it kind of combines together to make her really insane. I think that the new Mercy movement techs make Mercy very hard to kill. And the fact that she has some insane mobility means that she can fly around the battlefield where she's needed. She can go with a DPS on the flank. She could go in with a Far Mercy. She could fly in and help her team. She could resident impactful pick that the enemy got. There's so much that Mercy can do, and it's kind of up to the Mercy to be as survivable as possible. One, so that she doesn't die. She needs to make sure that she's alive, mastering those movements and being very careful with when and where she reses. And two, making sure that she tries to get the most out of her kit, as in healing as little as she needs to, damage boosting and changing breakpoints when at all possible. And you combine those things together, and I think Mercy is actually going to be freaking good. Now, the last character that we actually got for you on this list, it's a surprising one, and it's actually Mei, who's back at the time of the patch being released after she's been gone in like Bug Neverland for a very long time. Now, Mei's a very strange character going into Overwatch 2, but I think she's incredibly underrated for many reasons. For one, her icicles do a crazy amount of damage. Being able to hit them consistently means that you can actually duel quite a bit of DPS and supports, and I do think that she's actually pretty good at spamming head level at tanks, so if you're playing with your team or you're dealing with enemies trying to push you, Mei has a lot of pick potential. In addition to that, she's a character that enemies don't necessarily want to get right up to because she can close a fight pretty easily, slowing them down, and no one really wants to be locked in anywhere with a Mei. In addition to all those things, Mei is incredibly hard to kill. She has her ice block that allows her to heal up or get away, or she could simply pop in and pop out to get a kill. And of course, her wall, which I think is her best ability and incredibly powerful at either trapping a Roadhog if a Roadhog gets out of position. A Reaper tries to wraith away, he's walled off, he can't get away, and you kill him for free. The enemy Roadhog hits a hook, and if you're quick with it, you could protect your team, you could stop ultimates, you could deny space. There's so much potential for the Mei wall, and I really kind of want to bring it back to something that is very different about Overwatch 2 than it is Overwatch 1. Fights can be turnable. You can get picked. You could lose 2 people. And if you play safe, wait for the enemy to over-invest into trying to push you and clear you, you will find an opportunity, and Mei is the perfect character to capitalize on that. Like, if you lose 2 people and the enemies chase you, one person gets a little bit too eager, you wall them off, boom, you kill them. It's very hard to punish Mei. She's amazing at flipping the momentum of a fight. She can get pickoffs. She's hard to kill. She works well in a pick-oriented meta. I think that as an anti-pick, if you're not going to play any of the meta characters, Mei is actually pretty surprisingly good, and her ultimate is also very powerful as well. Don't sleep on Mei, or else you're going to be sent to deep sleep, like cryo sleep. Okay, sorry. Anyways, if you want private coaching, go check out my Patreon down below for one-on-ones and VOD reviews and more. But thank you so much for coming by, and I'll see you next time.